Well, hello there. Welcome to Scary Ideas, episode 18. Thanks to everyone who watched the Milo episode. It was the most successful episode yet. I expected that having him on would stir up some controversy, especially since I posted it in the comedy Facebook groups, the Chicago comedy Facebook groups, but no one cared. They just thought it was cool. I'm going to definitely try to get more guests like him on. There are a lot of conservative personalities who would be a great fit for this show. Also, this show is not about ghost hunting. A lot of people see the name and add me on Facebook who are clearly into ghosts. While I have no problem with ghost hunting or ghost hunters, this show is not literally supposed to be scary. It's about having conversations about topics that most people are afraid to talk about. Everyone likes talking about ghosts, but I will probably do an episode or two on ghosts anyway because it's fun. So, if you are a ghost hunter and have a cool story, send me a message on Facebook. Anyway, without further of that introductory bullshit, I'm going to bring on a guest that we have tonight to talk about neoconservatism. Please welcome Rory to the show. Hello, Rory.
Hello, Tim the Tool Man.
That's me.
Yeah.
So I asked you,
I saw some of that.
like an hour before the show, I asked you, hey, you want to talk about neoconservatism? And you said yes. So I'm not trying to put you on the spot here.
Yeah. What do you want to know about neoconservatism? You want to know, like, what it is, why it's important in the, stage of American political history, or...
So you know about the historical side of it. I guess the reason I'm interested in it is because a lot of people in the present world, in America, I guess, call themselves neocons. I just heard that term. Like,
how many people
week.
call themselves neocons nowadays?
Good point.
Nowadays, I feel like that's a heavily stigmatized term in the popular discourse, much more than it was during the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration.
Oh, I see. So it's probably only a fringe, small group of people. Because I guess when I heard it, it was used.
It depends on how you define fringe.
Right.
I mean, I consider them fringe because I consider neoconservatism to be a particularly destructive ideology and messianic ideology.
Okay,
but they're actually much more accepted in the current, like, acceptable mainstream discourse than, for example, Milo Yiannopoulos. Even though Milo is more neoconservative than alt-right, I would say,
I see.
as people call him.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if he called himself that or if someone called him that. Or
I don't think he calls himself that.
Yeah, okay. So your definition of neocon, if you wanted to give it like a really easy, digestible definition for people who don't know what it is.
Yeah. So basically, it's an ideological movement that came out of the 1960s and was started by intellectuals from elite institutions that they were mostly left from progressive to like full-on communist. Many of them were Trotskyist, that ended up abandoning a lot of the main cores of leftism. A lot of them called themselves liberals mugged by reality.
Okay.
And started adopting like free market economics. Like, they took certain ideas from libertarians, but they also supported heavy U.S. military intervention, originally to fight communism, and then eventually, as we've seen in the post-Soviet era, fighting what they call Islamic radical extremism.
Okay.
So, well, and not just that, a lot of it has also been tearing down governments who have been, in one way or another, accused of aligning themselves with Islamic radical extremists, as they're called by the neocons, and even when there's no evidence of them doing so, or there's very little evidence of them doing so, in the case of the war in Iraq. So yeah, I consider neoconservatives to be primarily responsible. Their baby was the war in Iraq in 2003, up until When's it officially end? 2010, 2011? Like, according to the newspapers, at least.
The invasion of Iraq
was in 2003.
Yeah, right, that's when that was. And the Iraq War, it says on Wikipedia, ended in 2011.
2011? Okay. Yeah, so that was pretty much exclusively a neoconservative project, and it ended up killing... I know the numbers are disputed, the number killed in Iraq, but a lot of people have estimated up to 2 million, with a majority civilian casualty rate. And it just completely devastated the economy and infrastructure of Iraq, not to mention the amount of dead people there were. And it's a huge part of the reason that things are as fucked up in Iraq as they are now.
Okay, well, there you go. You're doing a great job so far. And so this came up as we were talking at an open mic about Nick Fuentes. Like, I don't know if he's considered a neocon or...
Nah, I mean, like...
He's to the right of that.
I don't really follow Nick Fuentes. I stay away from that crowd. They weird me out.
Yeah.
But from what I understand of his ideology and the people he's criticized, I do not at all think that he would describe himself as neoconservative.
Okay, yeah, I probably just brought it up randomly because I just wanted to know what you thought. And then it seems like you know a lot about this stuff, and like you know about Conservative Inc. and how that's like a thing that that conservatives to the right of, like, there's like minorities within the conservative movement, I guess. I don't know. It's not just conservatism. There's like...
Well, conservatism isn't really an ideology. I don't think it is, as it's talked about in contemporary discourse. Like, a lot of the people that I've started getting interested in reading recently have described conservatism as essentially a buffer to progressivism, that they rarely have strong alternative ideas of their own. And generally their main function in politics is to say to progressives, oh, you can have this, just don't go further. And then 10 years down the road, they're like, okay, you can have this, but we'll go further. And then they try to sneak in, like, trying to bring things back a little bit, like with the Alabama abortion bill. But for the most part, the right has very little effect on the direction of political change.
All right, that covers that. How about we get a little more spicy and talk about the alt-right?
The alt-right? Okay.
Yeah, because I know that there's people who no one really calls...
Not a member, never have been.
Yeah, I never heard anyone call themselves a member. I've heard people called alt-right, and then what I was going to do on this podcast a little bit later, I was going to take an alt-right test to tell me what kind of alt-right I am.
What kind of alt-right you are?
Yeah, because it's a loose... Like, if you actually go to the people who actually are alt-right, there's different types of alt-right. It's not just one thing.
Yeah. And there's also a ton of people that get called alt-right who not only are their ideology just doesn't align with what the group of people that call themselves alt-right, like the people that call themselves alt-right are outwardly hostile to a lot of the people that get called alt-right, like Milo Yiannopoulos, like Ben Shapiro, like Jordan Peterson. And I'm not fans of any of those three. I think Jordan Peterson is the most benign of the three.
You're not a fan of Jordan Peterson? What's wrong?
What?
You're not a fan of Jordan Peterson?
I have a lot of criticisms of Jordan Peterson. I definitely wouldn't be one of these people on Twitter going to bat for him.
Well, that makes two guests in a row that...
I don't think he's a fascist.
Right. I mean,
I don't think that. I think a lot of the criticism of him is, I hesitate to use this word, but like histrionic. I think it's very alarmist, and I don't find him particularly interesting. I liked his like self-help stuff a few years ago when he was big on that. And I know people who like swear by him and swear that reading him has helped improve their lives, and I take them at their word. I mean, I don't discount that, but I do have my problems with Jordan Peterson.
Interesting. Yeah. Did you not like that he cries on TV?
No, that's fine. That's fine to cry on TV.
Okay, because that's what Milo didn't like about
Well,
him.
I mean, like, what was the context? Was it just when he was getting grilled, or was he like talking sincerely about like depression and stuff? Because I've seen him like tear up when he talks about that. So
I think it's just all the time he cries on TV, and it was just
he talks in a very whiny voice.
Yeah.
And he gets very defensive.
True.
Very.
So that makes two guests who criticize. So anyway, I guess we're jumping around just because I don't know. It's hard to focus. But like the thing with the alt-right people, some of them, like, and if you just go on Wikipedia, it says it's a far-right white nationalist movement.
The alt-right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Right, but then if you actually go on like these very dark parts of the internet, like Telegram groups, where there's no censorship whatsoever.
Telegram groups? What are those? Are those like chat rooms?
Yeah, it's like chat rooms where they just post memes where the true
swastikas and stuff like that.
Yeah, like actual white national, like actual anti-Semites, actual neo-Nazis go there. And I'm going to take this test later on in the episode, and it actually separates you. Like, you could be alt-right, but not a white supremacist. You could just be a blackpiller, or just like
wait, blackpiller are the guys who like are consider themselves so red-pilled that they want to kill themselves or something like that?
Kind of,
or just like the super nihilistic, like, dark. Yeah, that shit bums me out, man.
Well, that's why we're talking about it on this show, because and then the other one I think was just like more like super traditional conservative who want religion more, and they want like just the core Christian values, and they're still considered alt-right for some reason. I don't know. It's interesting to me because
yeah, I mean, like, when you get into like the really weird parts of any ideology, you're going to see a lot of hair splitting.
Mm-hmm.
The weird thing about like these like white nationalist guys is that they can range from being like Catholic to like anti-Catholic Christian to atheist to like believing in that like Nordic pagan shit, which was apparently like there were elements of that in the Nazi party, the real Nazi party. There are like people in there who are like all into the occult and the like Vikings religion and shit. And then there were people that were just Catholic or Protestant or atheist, or it was a mix.
Yeah,
but they all believed like racial nationalist.
In my understanding, generally the Nazis were Catholic, I thought.
No.
Depends who you ask.
German nationalists. There were many of them were Catholic. Many of them were Protestant. Many of them were secular.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was a mix. It wasn't bounded by religion. It was bounded by racial, ethnic nationalism, like explicit racist imperialist ideas, like blood and soil.
And then there's this thing where people say they just round out, instead of calling themselves Nazis, they call themselves, in these same groups that I go to, and also wignats is another term I just learned.
I've never heard that one.
Wignat?
Yeah.
I'll pull it up. It's I don't even know if I want to say what it stands for, but here it is on Urban Dictionary. I'll just read the definition. Wignat, within the parlance of the alt-right movement, is short for Whigger nationalist and refers to a person who takes unironic Nazism over the edge into absurdism and lunacy. So it's just just a crazy person on the internet, basically. That's just, I mean, yeah, usually a white person. Half the internet. Yeah, and I that's what Milo used, and anyway, I said that because I wanted to say
that's what he called himself.
No, he was talking about what I brought it up because he goes on Telegram, and I was like, yeah, there's this crazy guy on Telegram who wants to debate you. Yeah, and he was like, yeah, those wignats, they just want fame or something.
Yeah, I don't even Reddit. I don't like really interact on social media. I don't like that whole shit is toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And most of any like large open discussion group, 90% of them are going to be idiots in any group of any ideology.
So I guess what I was going to say is that they just, instead of calling themselves Nazis or whatever, they just say National Socialist, which is the same thing. It's just that's what Nazism is short for. Apparently, I didn't know that. I just found that out.
You didn't know that the party was called the National Socialist. I think it was called the German.
Yeah, I did know that. The National Socialist German Workers' Party. I knew that, but I didn't know that it was all that National Socialism was basically the same thing. You could just say the National Socialist, and also Nazism kind of sounds like that, just shortened.
Yeah, I mean,
literally,
I read somewhere that Nazi was Nazi when it first came out. It was the people that were members of the National Socialist Party didn't call themselves Nazis, even though it's like an abbreviation.
Right.
But it was apparently also a pun, because Nazi is a common nickname, or was a common nickname in Bavaria, I want to say.
Okay.
Let me look this up. I might be talking out my ass. Bavaria, which I believe is southern Germany, which is Nazi used to be a nickname for Ignatius.
Mm-hmm.
So it was essentially a way of calling someone a hillbilly or a redneck. It was a common term for that. So it was sort of a pun, sort of like calling someone a Trumpkin or I don't know.
I see. So yeah, it wasn't they didn't use it amongst themselves. They just call themselves National Socialists. I didn't know that. I just didn't know that was a proper term, and it makes it sound softer than Nazi, even though no, that's what it is. National.
Well, anyone who has read a history book knows that National Socialist is a reference to the Nazis. I mean, I don't think if they're trying to fool anyone, that's not a particularly smart way to do it.
Well, there you go. That's how little I know. And I don't think they are trying to fool anybody. I think they're just trying to be more proper and more, like, without...
respectable?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, they're just trying to be more correct intellectually instead of just saying Nazi, which can be a loaded term, but it's still the same thing. It's a synonym.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I'm learning a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And this show is catered towards people who have not read a single book on history.
Really?
So that's beautiful. Yeah.
You know, it has the word ideas in the title.
I try to make this a comedy show, but man, is that not happening a lot.
You're basically becoming Brian Lamb.
Okay, let's talk about. So you mentioned no, you didn't.
Do you know who Brian Lamb is?
No, you said someone else. Nick Land.
Oh, Nick Land.
I got confused.
Brian Lamb and Nick Land are completely different people.
Okay,
Brian
let's start with that one.
The C-SPAN guy.
Brian Lamb.
Yeah, the C-SPAN talk show where people
I think I found him.
Like, oh, Christopher Hitchens is debating fucking Naomi Wolf or something, and they're both selling books. And
the one that I found is a Gizmodo writer. I don't think that's it. You might have to tell me the spelling. Is it Lamb, like the animal?
No, Nick Lamb.
Oh, like the animal.
No, Nick. Are we talking Brian Lamb?
Oh yeah, I thought we were talking
Land?
Okay, let's talk about Nick.
One is Lamb, like the animal. One is Land.
Okay, got it. Nick Land. Let's talk about him.
Nick Land. Okay, yeah. He is this like British philosopher guy that became one of the leading figures of a philosophical movement known as accelerationism.
Yeah.
And that's the idea, basically, that either we should or we just will, because that's the nature of things, accelerate at an exponential rate the social and technological and political forces of capitalism until to the point where it's completely unsustainable and a new system will replace it. Which is not that different from just like old school Marx. If I'm not misrepresenting this, I don't think I am. But it's not that different from like Marxist thinking that eventually capitalism will collapse and be replaced by socialism, and then socialism will lead to communism. But the accelerationists don't think that it will lead to socialism or any type of like man-made social planning system. I think a lot of these guys think that like, I don't know, artificial intelligence will take over, the singularity, stuff like that, the next era of the world.
So they're just saying are they trying to encourage it to just go faster and faster until it just gets...
We should just not try to stop it. We should just get out of the way.
Sounds kind of like the blackpillers. They just want it to collapse.
I mean, I don't think these guys aren't like advocating suicide or like saying that ethical behavior doesn't matter.
It's not nihilism.
Sure it's the black pillar guys, right? The black pillar guys are the guys being like, I'm so ugly that my behavior and the way I treat people doesn't matter. Isn't that a big part of it?
Well, that's another definition. If you're talking about like in the incel
those
yes.
guys.
If you're just talking about the alt-right community, I think it's slightly different, but also probably has some overlap.
But they think it'll just like lead to race war and stuff like that, right?
Actually, I can't answer that because I'm just finding out about it. I just know that red pill and black pill have many definitions. Like red pill could mean like the kind where, you know, you just realize that women are shallow and you learn how to game the system to get women.
Isn't everyone shallow?
Yeah, men are too, I guess. But I'm just saying that's like the red pill, like the original.
Yeah, they're saying that like, I don't know. That shit is a lot like, I mean,
like game theory.
It's just like the converse of like blaming the patriarchy for everything that happens in your life if you're a woman.
Sure.
I mean, and that's like the fringe. And then this red pill guys just want to like blame women for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, I don't know, dude. I feel like just everyone uses, or the people that get really involved in that gender politics stuff are just projecting their own.
That's the one definition, and then obviously red pill.
On everyone else.
That has no political context. Like the other kind is like red pill. Oh, I became Republican because that's the color of Republicans, red or whatever. So like instead of blue, that's another huge. And anyway, and then also based. The term based is thrown around a lot. Like, oh, this guy is so based.
Right.
Would you consider yourself based?
I mean,
do you know what that means, by the way? Because I barely know.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of cringe.
It's the opposite of cringe. That's another Zoomer term.
I think I got a mix. If I'm being honest with myself, I got a mix of based and cringe. I think everyone does.
Yeah, it's hard to be perfect.
Yeah. I mean, like I'm like in five years. Like if I look back at this shit I was thinking 5 years ago, I was like, man, this guy was a dumbass. Can't believe he thought that shit. Then I'm sure that in 5 years from now, I will look back at 24 and be like, everything that this guy thought was stupid.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, I guess based according to the Urban Dictionary is just when you don't care what people think.
Oh.
But that's just one definition. I mean, and it's short for debased. I don't know, which means
okay, so debased is like when you allow the need for social approval to dictate every aspect of your behavior, including like every opinion you have and everything your entire style. Is that what debased means?
No, it's the same thing as based. It's just short for debased.
Oh.
So debased is where your ideology has been stripped off. It's referring to a concept after blah blah that has been stripped off its intrinsic significance by association, absorbs into the mass cultural continuum. So debased is still a good thing according to these people, which is a lot of Trump supporters use it. A lot of people.
Can't be just Trump supporters.
No, that's just
I'm sure like the Chapo Trap House crowd in the left has used.
You think so? Yeah, I've pretty much only heard it on the right, I think. But that's just where I've heard it. I mean, yeah.
Yeah, well, I do have a Twitter account so I can follow like different like sides and different like movements going on both the left and the right. And I think I've heard that term used in a diverse set of political enclaves.
So Nick Land is the dude who wants who wants accelerationism and wants.
Yeah.
Does he want it, or is it just an idea that he thought of? Like, is he advocating for it?
Yeah, I don't even think he necessarily thought of it. He was just one of the primary people developing it for decades.
Okay.
Developing the ideas behind it.
Are you pro-capitalism?
I would say that capitalism. Well, it depends on how we define capitalism. I tend to use it capitalism in practice. Like, I've sort of dropped this idea of thinking of capitalism in the ideal, but capitalism in practice, I think, has come with a series of trade-offs.
Sure.
And it depends on what you value. And I think there are many things that capitalism has taken away from people, and bad things that it has done to the social fabric and just how human beings relate to each other on a day-to-day basis. I also think that capitalism has improved the material circumstances of the vast majority of our lives, if not all our lives, in ways that we completely take for granted.
Yeah, like there's this developing idea, like I know this guy that's really big right now, he hangs out with like Candace Owens, and he's all about just like the Constitution, like he's all about the free market, and he thinks that freedom is what capitalism is about, and he's a part of what people would call Conservative Inc., and I'll think of his name in a second, but then people like Nick Fuentes thinks he's a fucking shill, and he's not a real conservative, because real
conservative, if I'm not mistaken, is an American nationalist and presumably
definitely
economic nationalist.
Charlie
right?
Kirk is who I'm thinking of.
Charlie Kirk?
Yeah.
Oh, that dude's so weird.
He's so big right now, and so he advocates for just
the size of his forehead.
Yeah.
Good God.
Yeah. His message is like, I think the reason he has a following that's so much bigger than Nick's is because he's easier to digest. Like, he's for just, if you're for freedom, if you're for like just being a patriot, I don't care about anything else. But this other guy, Nick, who's way further to the right, is like, no, fuck you. We need religion, and we also need order.
Traditions, hierarchy, right?
I think so. Like I know
he
very
probably
little.
believes in the blood and soil shit.
Yeah, I don't know. I just know he's very religious.
So I guarantee you, his views on trade policies, especially tariffs, are very different from Charlie Kirk's.
Right. He would not want to give money to other countries. I know that. He's against the foreign aid to Israel that we've been giving out.
Right.
That's why he's
opposition to foreign aid is across the political spectrum. There's a lot of there's a tradition of sound liberal critique of foreign aid. Do you know who Dambisa Moyo is?
No.
Okay, she wrote a book called, I think it was called Dead Aid, and it was talking about, so she's from, I'm going to get this completely wrong. I want to say she's from Zambia. But let me look this up.
I found her. Because of the book titled Dead Aid. Why aid is not working and how there is a better way for Africa.
Zambian. Yeah, did I say Zambian? I guess Zambia, right?
Yes, Zambia.
Yeah, a fucking genius.
Oh, yeah?
No, but yeah.
Well, so you like her?
I don't know. I think she has an interesting argument. I'm just making the point that opposition to foreign aid is not a far-right idea.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because a lot of people on the left, you would associate that with the right. If you're pro America first, like, you just only care about domestic issues and all that. Right.
But and when we're talking about neoconservatism, that's one of the biggest conflicts between neoconservatism and the America first ideas, because neoconservatives want an aggressive foreign policy where we have to basically go around and try to recreate the world in our image and try to impose our politics and our economic
hence the Iraq War.
Iraq War, yeah. Even though it's not quite neoconservatism, there is certainly a large neoconservative element to it. The coup in Iran in what led to one of the things when they instituted the Shah. That was a little before neoconservatism, I believe. But let me look this up.
So you're saying neocons are for sending resources and are forcing our ideologies onto the whole world?
Yeah.
Sounds like globalism.
Yeah, neoconservatives are pro-globalism.
Shit, I didn't know that. Yeah, I didn't know anything about it, but that's why I'm learning.
Yeah, it's messianic.
Hmm.
Sucks. Yeah, so the Iranian Code d'etat,
What's messianic?
messianic is when you want to spread your ideas and your ideology. It was originally used to refer to religious movements that, like, it comes from, like, Messiah.
Okay,
Like, we need to go around and, like, spread the word, even if we have to do it violently.
Interesting. Yeah, I got it.
Because we're saving them. Like, have you ever heard the quote? I think it was some, like, general in the Vietnam War who said, we need to burn the village down in order to save it. Like,
Okay.
that idea.
Got it. Interesting. Yeah, I feel like a lot of Trumpers just want to, Trump supporters just don't want to mess with that. They don't want globalism. They don't care about what's going on in other countries.
Yeah, that's definitely a strong element.
Yeah. And that's easy to follow. It's hard to advocate for across the board, but it's definitely easy for if you're a lazy American who just wants to. It's easy to follow, is all I'm saying.
Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't think that as long as
Is it nationalism, though? Like, it is sort of nationalistic, also. And is there anything wrong with nationalism?
It depends on the context, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like, I'm against all collective, like, tribal mentality, and nationalism certainly falls into that.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say that I'm a nationalist.
Yeah, I guess it depends. Because I guess what I'm asking is there any cases where it's okay just as a label to throw on yourself? Like, if you say, well, I'm for borders, I'm for the Constitution, in that sense, that's kind of nationalistic if you want to preserve that.
Yeah, I mean, like, with the Constitution stuff, I don't think most Americans have read the Constitution or understand what's in it.
Not most,
and
yeah.
I don't think that most people of any population at any time ever really care about, like, civil liberties or anything like that. I don't think they really think about that stuff, and I think most people just aren't political.
True. Well, what about just loving America and being patriotic? Is that? I mean, that's similar, but it's not.
But, like, I think one of the differences, the way it's used in an American context between patriotism and nationalism, is that patriotism, people will often say that. Who was it that I think it was Thomas Jefferson that said dissent is the highest form of patriotism?
Okay.
So, like, criticizing the state affairs, wanting your country to be better and improve its station and be, like, a moral leader, let's say, that could be considered patriotic. Nationalism is just no holds barred, fighting for your country's interests above all else, fighting for the nation's interests. So the nation's interests beyond, like, the treatment of individuals or, at the expense of people that are not aligned with you nationally.
So that's patriotism.
What?
Is that so? That's patriotism.
No. What I described is sort of nationalism.
Really? Oh, so what's patriotism?
Like fighting aggressively for your country's interests, no matter what.
Okay.
I think that would be considered nationalism in the way that we use it.
Yeah, I guess that also to me sounds like patriotism, because isn't that what you do if you're going to war, if you're being a soldier, literally defending your country, you get called a patriot.
If you're actually defending your country, sure. If you're just invading a country over a conflict that your country had nothing to do with, and it's all about resource allocation.
Okay.
And then I would not consider that to be patriotic.
So it sounds like you attack this stuff from a very scholarly point of view. It doesn't sound like you
Not really. I mean, like, most of this is tomfuckery.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like you pick sides, though, is I guess what I'm getting at. You don't really have a dog in the fight. I'm trying
have you ever seen Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers?
Yeah.
Yeah, when the Ent, the tree guy, says, "Side, I'm on nobody's side because nobody's on my side."
Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel sometimes.
So nobody's on your side, like as an individual, or
No, I mean, like, politically.
So you have a side. You just.
Not a political, like, I
Do you mean like
don't
socially?
engage
Like.
I don't have a political tribe.
Right.
I don't have, like,
And you're not
I have
talking
no
identity.
interest in imposing my political will on other people
Yeah. Do you have
through law.
any? If you had to pick any labels, are there any labels you're comfortable with, politically?
I don't know. For a while, I was calling myself an anarchist.
There
I
you
don't know if
go.
that
Yeah,
label
that's a
really.
good.
I don't know if that label really. I don't know. Uh, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
wouldn't
That's fair.
be
You don't
able
have
to
to.
think of one. Right.
I like that you are able to be neutral.
I
And
used
just.
to call myself a libertarian,
Oh, there you go. Yeah, that's like
but I
heated.
wouldn't call myself that now.
It's become a very narrow one that you have to. It's really hard to. It's a heated one. A lot of people make fun of them.
Well, I was in in the whole libertarian movement. I was 2 separate years. I worked internships that were funded by the Charles Koch Foundation.
Yeah, like I kind of used to think of myself as definitely on the libertarian side of the spectrum more than authoritarian, but to just call myself a straight up libertarian, it just it doesn't have a sail. That boat does not have a sail. Like you need.
No, yeah, libertarians are. I think 2016 deluded a lot of people who call themselves libertarians because they saw how appalling the two options ended up being in the end, where they thought, oh, we can really raise up Gary Johnson, because so many people hate Trump and so many people hate Clinton, say, hey, this guy's neither. So let's why don't you vote for him? And it ended up failing for two reasons, I think. One, Gary Johnson was just I think he's a fine guy and a fine speaker, and I think he's a really likable guy, but he just didn't have the caliber.
Yeah, how the fuck is a libertarian ever gonna get in office?
Never.
They're so they're too pacifist. Yeah,
Libertarianism is never going to win through elections ever.
right.
It's an inherently anti-democratic ideology.
It's anti-democratic, and also okay. I guess I don't even know. It's like
True libertarianism, yes, yeah. The ideas of Murray Rothbard, and yeah.
Okay. I guess we don't have to get too much into that because that seems like a whole episode. Really quick, do you want to talk about this other guy, Brian Lamb?
Brian Lamb, oh, he's just a C-SPAN guy. He's
Yeah.
one of the greatest people ever. Yeah, I mean, like,
okay.
he wasn't like never like a political like pundit or ever. He just like
Yes, CEO.
He just interviewed a shit ton of people, and he liked to talk to a lot of people on all sides, and he always asked like really like interesting questions. A lot of people don't, you know.
So you're a fan.
Oh yeah, I'm a fan.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, Brian Lamb's awesome.
So that's it. Nothing controversial about him.
As far as I'm aware, he has
Yeah, I don't hear
controversial about him.
Yeah, I've never heard.
He's like the least controversial guy in the world.
Interesting. Okay, I guess it's not interesting actually for this podcast.
No, yeah.
Anyway, anything else you want to throw out? I think we covered a lot.
Yeah. Let's see. Yeah, I don't know.
Are you voted? Do you have any candidates that you're excited about?
Yeah. I think I said a comic when they were trying to do crowd work asked me that, said, "You're Mike." Yeah, I'll be voting in the Democratic primary for Tulsi Gabbard.
That's who I thought you were gonna say.
Yeah.
Cool.
She's awesome.
So she's awesome. Is it anything like any of her views specifically, or is it
foreign policy?
So mostly foreign policy.
Yeah, and I think she is very disapproving of the Democratic political machine, the DNC.
Okay.
And especially the Clinton wing.
So she's not a far lefty.
What?
She's not like a lefty.
I mean, she's pro Medicare for all. I'm pretty sure she's pro reparations.
Okay.
She wants immigration reform.
It's pretty left.
Yeah, I mean, like, she is pro-choice.
Got it.
And she's anti-war.
Okay, anti-war. Yeah, who isn't? I mean,
Virtually every candidate in the Democratic Party is not anti-war, and Donald Trump, in terms of the policies that he's enacted so far, is not anti-war.
Really? Oh, okay, I guess that's a heated...
I mean, he gave a lot of lip service
Yeah.
to the America First crowd who were pissed off at American foreign policy. And, I mean, to a certain extent, like, the Breitbart elements of his administration have tried to push some of that non-intervention stuff, but for the most part, it's been business as usual overseas.
Okay.
America's still mingling.
Yeah, okay, I guess the way you made it sound, she definitely sounds like she's further to the left than me. She's based in a good way, in a left...
In a good way.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, because I feel like if you're pro-reparations and also healthcare for all, you're definitely doing some lip service to get a certain demographic on your side. I wouldn't call that based. I would call that trying to get voters.
It's based as far as a presidential candidate goes.
Okay, at least she's not she's not basic income like
Andrew Yang.
Like Yang. Like, I just don't see that as being practical. I just feel like that's all...
Well, yeah, I mean, like, the early...
That's a millennial fucking wet dream.
I talked to this a little bit with you last time I called in.
Oh, yeah.
The original proponents of original basic income wanted it to act as a replacement for the welfare state. And they were typically associated with the libertarian right.
So it would replace welfare.
Yeah, so no food stamps.
Just money.
Just money, and you can use that however you want. And if you misuse that, and
how's that
don't
better?
Have the money for it, what?
If it's just money, that's basically the same thing. It's just a handout.
They use some theory that how is that better from what perspective?
Because then it's still just a handout, and then they could spend it on shit that's not gonna get them out of welfare. They could just spend it on anything, like toy, like anything.
I mean,
like clothing.
Differs on the individual. I mean,
like
there are going to be people that use it irresponsibly.
Yeah.
There are going to be people who don't, and the fact that it's for everyone means that it can be used to supplement one's income. It can be might be easier to keep people out of prevent or at least help break down this idea of a welfare class. Like there's this perception in American politics that there's an entire class of people who are intergenerationally on welfare.
Okay.
And there are some, but that is not the majority of people that are currently on state benefit.
So it's intergenerational welfare so we need to... I don't know. I think that's
I mean, that's a big part of the argument against the welfare state, that it creates a system where generation upon generation within families and communities are dependent on state benefit. And you could say that's true of some, people on welfare probably. I am really skeptical that it's most people who have ever used state benefit.
Okay. Yeah, it's a complicated thing. All these things are complicated, and I kind of got a little bit red-pilled on this issue just by hearing about, Republican commentators saying, well, there's a lack of family values, so if we keep people on welfare, they're not going, and they don't have like a good family unit with two parents. Blah blah blah. You get where I'm coming from. I'm sure you've heard.
It always weirds me out when conservatives simultaneously praise capitalism and free markets and economic development, while at the same time whining about the breakdown of tradition and family values, because it's mostly trade and globalism and international markets and that sort of technological development and the raising of the standard of living that leads to a breakdown of those sorts of traditions.
Okay, you got me there.
For example, because of capitalism, it is much more common for people to leave their families to go to other parts of the country, even the world, in because of work. And, there's reasons why people would need to do that. Absolutely. And there's ways in which that it being able to do that, there are some people who the arguments we're making more able for people to do that. Some would say that it pressures or coerces people into that type of work life where they have far less connection with their family and their community.
I think there's truth to that.
Yeah.
I just don't know if socialism is going to be the answer to give more power and more regulation and more programs, and also that linked with all this identity politics and paying lip service to the minorities just to get them to vote a certain way to keep the democratic machine crunching along. I don't know. I think there's truth on both sides. Nothing's black and white, but all this is definitely making me think about it.
Yeah. What were we saying before about socialism? Oh, yeah. A lot of people will point to the Scandinavian countries as model examples of
they love to do
socialism. But those countries actually have far more liberated, much more economic freedom in terms of the way you're able to do business as far as a corporate tax goes.
And
those countries actually have far more business-friendly policies than even the United States. It's just the fact that they're abundantly wealthy that they're able to come up with this redistribution system that can make sure that people have access to healthcare.
They're also some of the richest countries in the world. They're not America with all these...
they're wealthy because you could argue that they're wealthy because of their economic policies.
You could certainly argue that, but I just feel like the reason that it works also is because they already were wealthy and they have a smaller population. They don't have as much of a disparity between classes.
What do you mean they were already wealthy?
I don't know. I just feel like inherently those countries, based on the way that they don't have as wide of a disparity in the population of wealth, it doesn't really matter what system is in place. They have wiggle room to allow social programs to not deplete the resources because they don't have a bunch of disparity of wealth to begin with.
Well, the question is, what causes that disparity in wealth?
And that's where it gets very complicated. Yeah, I'm just going by what seems logical. America is such a different culture to begin with.
Sure.
Immigration is higher in this country than in those countries.
What about Canada?
Canada, same thing. They don't have...
Canada's a pretty diverse country, and Canada has tons of immigration, and they have a pretty functioning national healthcare system.
Yeah, I guess that's also debatable. People say, oh, yeah, it just depends who you ask. I don't know.
Well, if you ask Canadians, they'll tell you that's pretty good.
Yeah, I've heard it from both sides. I've heard them say it's good. I've also heard them say it's bad. Same with, Britain right now, the I hear people complaining about that and how it's getting more expensive to get just as good medical care and all that. And yeah, it's super. All these topics we could get into for hours and hours, and I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm just repeating shit from Ben Shapiro, basically. But
what do you mean, eating shit from Ben Shapiro?
All the shit I just said about how Scandinavian countries can afford their socialized programs. I'm not the one who thought of this, but it sounds logical that their culture is more restrictive, their immigration is more restrictive, and they have a smaller population, higher income per capita, and less disparity of wealth between the classes.
Yeah, I'm kind of skeptical that those are the reasons why their healthcare systems are so different from ours. Our health system is actually pretty unique in the way it's developed since World War II, and the whole concept of
Yeah.
The fact that most of us get our health insurance through our employers.
If we're just talking about the healthcare system,
It's insanely complicated and bureaucratized in America.
Well, yeah, that we agree on. Everyone agrees on that. It's not.
There's one person that I could recommend reading on this subject. Let me see. She's like, I think she studied this for her PhD. She's like an expert in American healthcare.
Yeah, both sides agree. It's too.
So yeah, there's this person I know who studied at University of Chicago, and she's studying in the healthcare system a lot. She has a couple of YouTube videos where she talks about healthcare. Her name's Sloan Frost.
Sloan Frost. All right.
Yeah, she knows a lot about how our healthcare system got to the point where it's so expensive now, where people are essentially dependent on working these shitty jobs that they hate for the sole reason, or at least the primary reason being that they're dependent on their health care for that.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
and either way, it's ridiculously expensive in this country.
Yeah.
Like, that's not free market. Like, if it was a real free market, it'd be cheaper, because that's just...
Well, yeah, there are countries where their healthcare system, their healthcare markets are much freer.
Right.
And they also have like a health savings account. I'm thinking of Singapore specifically. I think they use like a health savings account system. It's not like Medicare for all. It's not really even like a national health services. It's very much a market based.
Like
healthcare
if
system.
I would be for not healthcare for all, not the socialized medicine, I'd be for more capitalistic medicine, which we don't have. I mean, I don't know. That's just what I think. That's just what I mean.
It depends on like what kinds of regulations. We have to parse out what kinds of regulations are necessary, stuff like that.
Definitely,
For example,
do
you want like a pharmaceutical company? They have a drug that's already been approved, but they essentially hoard it. They don't release it into the market because they want demand to raise.
Say it again.
Or like healthcare systems keeping. Pharmaceutical companies keeping certain drugs off the market in order to increase demand.
That's a tricky one.
The amount of influence they have over, like, the largest pharmaceutical companies, the amount of influence they have over the FDA and their ability to regulate which drugs are approved. So that the idea is that either they want like a patent on a certain drug to keep other companies from getting hold of it, or they make certain competing drugs illegal.
I
haven't seen this movie, but it talks a lot about this. It's called Dallas Buyers Club.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's got Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Like, guy who like illegally smuggled AIDS medication, AIDS and HIV medication into the U.S.
I mean, yeah, that's not free market to allow one country to monopolize a drug, because I think patenting a chemical is kind of weird.
Yeah, and then we can have a whole debate about intellectual property and stuff like that.
It's complicated.
I know nothing about intellectual property.
It's a chemical. How could you patent? How could that be intellectual property if it's a chemical?
Well, what if you were the first person to think of that chemical?
I don't know. I'm not a chemist.
No one else.
It's nature.
That chemical, when it existed, was without you. I'm not saying that I'm on this side of the debate. I'm just saying I think a lot of people would make that argument, probably. That
you can patent, that you should be able to copyright a chemical.
Yeah, if the idea or product wouldn't exist without your intellect, then it is your intellectual property.
Right. Yeah.
That's the debate.
That is the debate. Yeah. Well, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know. I think we covered a lot, so I don't know. I mean, thanks for taking your time to have this discussion about all these different things, because I just had you on to talk about neoconservatism, and that definitely evolved into many other subjects. So.
Right. If you guys want, Wikipedia has a pretty good page on neoconservatism, but
I pulled it up.
Yeah.
It'll be in the video.
Who's written a good overview of? Let's see. You got Robbie Martin, Robbbie Martin. He has done a lot of job documenting neoconservatism see. I think Daniel Bessner has too.
Okay.
Yeah. He's pretty good. Yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think I'm going to let you go, and I would love to have you back on.
All right.
Next
Later,
time.
man.
All right. Later.
Later. Bye.
Bye. All right. That was a great call. We talked about a lot of stuff that I didn't know anything about, and it's hard to defend your opinions and views when someone actually knows about what you're talking about a little bit. So, and also, I don't really feel the need to defend my views all the time just because I'm on a podcast. Like, I don't care. I'm not running for office. I like looking dumb on this show. So, for a little bit more, we're going to play some stuff that I thought was relevant. We talked about the alt-right. Let's see what this comedian Dave Smith has to say about that. So the video's private. Here we go.
This is what if the alt-right is a response, in my opinion, to two things. It's a response to the left, and it's a response to the neocons. What they're basically saying is that the fucking left hates white people, and the neocons are run by fucking Jews who only care about Israel. Now, maybe those are kind of blanket things to say that aren't 100% of the time true, but there's definitely a lot of truth to both of them. And if you have the left who's lecturing white people about the left is so many of the social justice woke left people hate white people. It's so obvious. They fucking hate white people. And their message is basically the following. It goes, we're playing identity politics. I want to see more people of color in positions of power. I want to see more women in positions of power. So in other words, everyone except white men, I want to see in more positions of power. And it is a horrible, horrible thing to be a minority. Even when a society has written laws and done all these things to make it better for minorities, it's a horrible thing to be a minority. And we fucking hate white people. And by the way, white people are going to be a minority in a few years in this country. That is their message. I'm really not adding much to it. Can you understand where there might be a movement of white people who aren't looking forward to being a minority? When people are literally telling them, we hate you, and it's horrible to be a minority? Do you get where it comes from? I'm just saying, do you see what's happening here? I mean, do you see what the grievance is? Do you want to try? If you're not going to address what the grievances are, how do you even, have this conversation? It's like, do you think that the left, the left who talk about the browning of America and the evils of white men, do you think when white people become a minority in this country, they're going to go, okay, we're even. Water under the bridge, we don't hate white people anymore? Or do you think they're going to go, now's the time to really put the boot on the fucking neck? I'd understand being concerned. I'd understand being concerned about it. And then you have, it's like, oh, they really don't like Jews. And then you're like, well, I wonder why. Well, here you have an Orthodox Jew bragging about how Jews completely dominate Donald Trump's foreign policy. And he's not wrong about it. And that's the problem.
Oh, shit. So that's
This is
just something I wanted to play because this Dave Smith's guy's like a pretty mainstream comedian, and he's not afraid to say stuff that makes him look like he's actually, defending or advocating some of the things that people that are very far right are saying. But who cares how far right they are? He's making it sound pretty reasonable to just point out that the left is a little bit being a little bit hateful and I don't really know, but it speaks for itself, that clip. So we're gonna with that, speaking of being alt-right, we're going to find out what kind of alt-right I am by taking this test right here. Is this it? Yes, this is it. It's called, What Kind of Alt-Right Are You? The term alt-right is a broad blanket term which encompasses many different strains of right-wing political thought, ranging from classical liberalism to fascism. So I didn't know that. I didn't know that classical liberals are considered alt-right. I mean, they are definitely called alt-right, but to actually be legitimately alt-right just by being a classical liberal, that's interesting. Because, I don't know. So what kind of alt-righter do you most closely identify with? And by the way, this test does not tell you if you're alt-right or not. It tells you what kind of alt-right you are. So you can't pass it. If you're taking this test, you're going to be considered alt-right. So my age is 25 to 30. My gender's male. I don't know why that matters. Apparently that matters. What's the purpose of the state? I don't know. Let's see. So there's nothing the state does that the private entities can do better. The state exists to unite people in common material, spiritual storm. The state exists to preserve and advance culture. The state exists to preserve and advance race. The state exists to protect communities and families with order and morality. Don't know, don't care. Those are the options. I don't fucking know, dude. The state, yeah, I'm gonna probably go with the one that says that private entities can do whatever the state does. I don't think it's to advance culture or families or morality. Nah, I don't care about that. Maybe a little bit, but if anything, in spiritual struggles, maybe. Yeah, I'm gonna go with the private entities can do anything. That's the capitalist point of view. So, in your opinion, which of these events was the most destructive in the long run? The Russian Revolution, the fall of the Third Reich, U.S.-backed coups during and after the Cold War, the Civil Rights Movement, the French Revolution. We're living through an event that is more destructive than any of these. Oh, shit. All of these are pretty nuts. And I don't even understand most of them. I understand, like, the French Revolution. That's the most... that was a long time ago. And I don't know anything about the Russian Revolution. I don't think it's the fall of the Third Reich. I'm not going to answer that one. U.S.-backed coups during and after the Cold War. I don't fucking know, dude. How the fuck do I know? I'm just going to go with we're living through an event that is more destructive than any of these. Because seems like the most non-hateful one. So, what should the relationship between the church and state look like? There should be separation of the two. Religion is a personal decision. That seems reasonable. The church must conform to the will of the state. The state must protect the religion, which most reflects the culture of the people. The state must protect the religion, which most unites the white race. The state should discourage superstition. Prayers take precious time away from more pragmatic matters. Yeah, I don't care if people are superstitious, dude. A well-ordered state is ordered by God. Yeah, no. I'm going to go with the first one, dude. Religion is a personal decision, and it should be separate. Which economic system is best? That's an easy one, dude. Capitalism, dude. In your opinion, which of these social political movements is the most harmful? The sexual revolution, republicanism, neoconservatism, feminism, Black Lives Matter, or open borders campaigns? Which is the most harmful out of those? Damn, that's a tough one, dude. Probably it's between feminism and open borders campaigns. Probably. I don't care about the sexual revolution that much. I mean, that sounded fun. Neoconservatism, I just learned about. I don't think it's the most harmful. Republicanism, definitely not that. And not Black Lives Matter. I mean, that's not the most harmful. Open borders. I'm going to go with feminism. All right, what are your views on abortion? It is immoral as it is an assault on society's most vulnerable members and rejection. It is immoral. It should be allowed, but only in extreme situations, such as extreme deformity or disability. It's a good thing as long as it continues to disproportionately affect minorities. Wow. It should be allowed as it is a personal bodily decision. That's probably what I'm going to go with because that's what I kind of believe. You know? Alright, so which of the following guns is your favorite? Ooh. I don't really know of any of these guns, except for the AR-15, and I don't really have a favorite gun. What's the Ruger 9? I'll just go with whichever one looks the coolest. The Ruger, that one looks boring. Just a pistol. Like, let's go. What does a Spanish Mauser look like? Just a rifle. I don't like that one. MG42. That's a cool one, but it was used in Nazi Germany, so that's probably a bad option to pick. But it does look cool. I mean, whatever. The Berdan 2. The Berdan 2. That's another boring rifle. I don't know why this matters so much. Like, it's just a gun. And then the Mossberg 500. What does that one look like? It's like a shotgun type dealie. Yeah, it's like a cool... It's like a shotgun. I'm gonna go with the Nazi one, because it looks cool. I mean, sorry. Doesn't mean I'm a Nazi just because it's a cool looking gun and was used by Nazis. I'm not advocating for it being used by Nazis or Nazis. I just think it's a cool looking gun. Look at that. So that's the one I'm going with. I don't care what the repercussions are. What religion do you profess? Traditional Catholicism, Orthodox Christianity, Protestantism, agnosticism, atheism, esoteric. I already know the answer. Atheism, even though it's not a religion, it's the lack of religion. I'll go with that. What is your favorite board on 4chan? I don't visit 4chan. That's the honest answer. I don't. Otherwise, I'd probably know a lot more about all these things that we talked about tonight. How strongly did you identify with the label alt-right? I reject the label. I reject the label, but I could see why my beliefs would get lumped in with them. I identify with the label, but I see the alt-right as a means to the end. I somewhat identify. I strongly identify. I identify with the label, but only ironically. Yeah, I have to say I reject the label. I mean, sorry, I don't use that label. All right, here's a type of alt-right that I am. I am a libertarian / ANCAP. ANCAP? Okay. Your chief disagreements with the left are economic, not social, and you adopt a largely live and let live view towards your fellow man. Okay, that's not so bad so far. You probably don't associate with or identify as alt-right, and the alt-right by and large only sees you as a foil for more vocal and annoying SJWs. Ouch. That hurts. You probably like guns and anime a little too much. Alright, that hurts. But I'll take it. That's not as bad as it could be. So it says I'm a little bit of a black pillar, whatever, we talked a little bit about that. Slightly Nazi, 15%, but that's probably only because I like the gun that Nazi used. Big deal. And that's it. That's not bad. I think I got off pretty easy, to be honest. So, that was fairly interesting, and, I don't know. For some reason, I thought that'd be entertaining to do. So, I learned a lot on this episode. I learned that, I'm not very good at talking about politics. I already knew that, so never mind. Let's just do one more thing before wrapping this up. Let's take a narcissism test. Why not? I talk about being a narcissist all the time, so I might as well embrace it, right? So, let's see if I'm a narcissist. Do you experience an exaggerated sense of self-importance? Often. Do you expect to be seen as superior to other people? Sometimes. Do you exaggerate your talents or accomplishments? Who would answer that? If you exaggerate them, then you're not... If you admit to exaggerating them, then you're probably not a narcissist. Who would say that? That you... if you answer very often, that should make you not a narcissist. You know? That's a weird question. Do I exaggerate them? Sometimes, sure. Do you require constant admiration from others? Sometimes. Do you engage in fantasies about being successful for a beautiful? Oh, fuck yeah, dude. Very often. Very often. Do you expect total compliance and special favors from others? I'm gonna go with some. Yeah. That's a tough one. Often. Do you struggle to recognize the emotions and needs of other people? Nah, I don't. I recognize them. Doesn't mean I do anything else. Doesn't mean I respect them. Do others perceive you as arrogant or haughty? Hell yeah, very often, dude. Alright, let's see. Oh, this says I have moderate narcissism. Look how high that is. Look how high that dial is. That means I'm a bad person. Your answers suggest a moderate indication that you have symptoms common along people with narcissistic personality disorder. I already knew that, but thanks for the confirmation. It doesn't affect me one way or the other. I'm not going to change. I do need therapy, but this did not convince me to get it. Anyway, this has been another episode of Scary Ideas. Thank everyone for enjoying this very long episode. Actually, it went by very fast. Thanks to Rory for calling in. That made it a lot easier on my part.
The Sergeant at Arms will restore